So I always run 2 recorders, so there's no chance of losing the interview.
Well, it's even worse if you're in a recording studio, and this only happened once with me in the 70s, and I just played the solo of my life actually on the Moog, which was in its infancy at the time. So tuning was, you kind of got it or you didn't get it, and well, anyway, I just played what I thought was the best solo, And about 4 o'clock in the morning, we listened back to it, and I said to the engineer, "Where's the Moog solo?" And you could tell by the look on his face, the stunned look, and all the ums and I think it's here. I said, "You've wiped it off, haven't you?" It was 4 o'clock in the morning, and the engineer was very tired, but Greg sort of stepped in. He said, "Oh, come on, Keith, you can do another one." I said, "At 4 o'clock in the morning?" I said, "That was the best solo." He said, "No, do another one." And I tried, and even now when I listen back to it, it's okay, but it's just slightly out of tune. It was on the solo was played on a mini Moog, and it was just slightly out of tune.
What song are we talking about?
I'll leave that to your readers to guess.
You're not going to tell me what it is.
It was somewhere on the Trilogy album. Everybody's going to be searching for that now, aren't they?
Okay.
But I remember how the solo went, but it was so everybody's going, that's such a trilogy. And
you just turned 70. What does that milestone mean to you?
Wow. Well, just exactly that, I don't feel any real difference. I still feel quite alert, and I can't run marathons anymore, and I have done 4 in my life, and I suppose I remain fairly active. I wouldn't say I more or less subdued my exercise to walking and stuff like that. No, I can remember looking way back when I was a kid and looking at 70-year-olds, and they were really pretty old. Well, they seemed pretty old to me, my father, he passed away at the age of 71. So I don't think I'm near snuffing it just yet.
Does it have any impact on music or projects you want to make or complete?
I think in a way it's opened up my sense of harmony, harmonics, improvisation, and the fact is that now I feel, I can take a few more risks with harmonic development, not just for the sake of it, really just really for the sake of music itself. You know, when you analyse the music of Bartók, which some time ago, well, I would say in my 20s, even though Emerson, Lake and Palmer did an adaptation of Allegro Barbaro, calling it Barbarian, it was challenging, and I think a lot of people felt that my adaptations were doing that as a process of showing off. It was nothing to do with that. When I was having piano lessons, I had 3 music teachers actually, but I felt that the last one, her name was I think she's still with us, is Carol Smith, and regardless of what other people have written, I'd never went to any college of music or anything like that. So, with regards to that, I regard myself as being self-taught, really. Once I got the basic knowledge of learning how to read and write music, then it was all down to me, really. But I remember my last piano teacher, Carol Smith, saying, I think I wanted to learn things like Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto No. 1. And she said, "Oh no, don't do that. Everybody does that." So that, in a way, that always stuck in, if you're going to do something like that, or play a classic piece, don't do the usual repertoire. Clair de Lune, Fur-Elise, all the Beethoven sonatas. No, I always went sort of left wing, I suppose, and still do. But, which makes me diverse to, why did I do classical adaptations? Well, main thing was I just thought they were pretty good damn tunes. Pictures of an Exhibition, Mussorgsky, I wandered into a symphonic concert round about just before I was forming Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and I think it may have been the London Philharmonic, and that was the last thing on their repertoire, and I'd never heard Pictures at an Exhibition. It just bowled me over. I thought, what a great set of good tunes. So I went down to a music publisher's in London the next day, and I was asking for the orchestral score. And I said, I think they knew who I was. And I said, "Do you have the orchestral score to Pictures at an Exhibition?" They said, "Oh, well, you want the score?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm going to transcribe it into piano." And he looked at me like, sort of real dumb, you're like. He said, "You do know, don't you, that it actually really, it was originally a piano solo." Was it? And he said, "Yeah." He said, I said, "Do you actually have a copy of that here?" And so he dug it out, and I said, "Well, great, that saved me a hell of a lot of work." And took it home, learnt it, and went round to Greg Lake's house. He had a piano there, and I played it, and Greg said, "Cool, that's good, isn't it?" what is that? I said, it's by this Russian guy called Modest Mussorgsky. He says, oh, there's good tunes there. I said, that's what I thought. So basically, when we found Carl Palmer, we that was the starting point. Because Greg Lake and myself, we hadn't learned how to write with each other at that time. You know, the composing music and songs with somebody else, you really have to sort of like find out where they're at. And Greg liked it, so we used that. That was a starting block. You know, usually when bands get together, it's like, okay, guys, let's jam. But it was never like that with the ELP.
How does that relate to taking more harmonic risks now compared to that era?
Well, I think that, you know, playing the music of the greats, such as Mussorgsky or even Alberto Ginastera, you hear something and it's just an explosion. It just comes at you, and I, for one, wanted to, apart from having a great love of jazz, wanted to utilize different structures, different chord changes. I suppose it was, you know, if you listen to sax players, alto players like Eric Dolphy, Ornette Coleman, and they go outside of the chord, that always sort of appealed to me. So that was it. It was not only was it a challenge, but the other thing was that it was great to play outside the chords, but as long as you know and you've got the map, and as long as everybody can get back there, then it's good. You know, the thing is also that I think in the very early days, when I was sort of like, when we went out and did stuff like Tarkus, it left the audience sort of slightly confused. But I mean, now to have works like Tarkus, which I composed and helped orchestrate, and to go to Japan and hear the Tokyo Philharmonic play Tarkus to a packed hall, sold out hall, and to be introduced on stage by the conductor was beyond my wildest dreams, quite honestly. I thought, well, I made it, you know. And I always had hoped that at some point an orchestra might play what I'd written, and they are doing that now. You know, I mean, going back to 1969, I was quite friendly with Frank Zappa, and Frank Zappa wanted to meet me because he was disturbed by orchestras in England. He was referring to them, oh, they're just a bureaucracy and what should I do and how do I go about this? Because he knew that I'd already worked with group and orchestra, but and also my contemporaries like John Lord, and sadly no longer with us, Rick Wakeman. I think we just really, I suppose really working with an orchestra gave us like some sort of sense of decency. That may have been behind it all, I don't know. But certainly if you said, if you got in a taxi in London and the guy said, are you in a band then, mate? Yeah, well, what's the name of the band? And in the 60s it was called The Nice. He said, The Nice what? And so where are you playing then? Marquee Club, But if you get in a taxi, probably these days, and where are you going? Well, I'm going to the Royal Albert Hall. Oh, really? What, you in the band then? And you go, no, I'm actually playing with the Royal Philharmonic. And it's, suddenly the whole thing changes, I
mean, obviously, you sold tens of millions of albums and have played to stadiums of 60 to 80,000 people. What sort of different level of validation do you feel when you have an orchestra performing your music?
Well, I think that they are definitely two separate things. I mean, working with orchestras takes a lot more, a different sort of mental energy. And it can be very intimidating, as I found out. But coming back to, and I'll get back to answering the question, coming back to Frank Zappa, he had concerns, So I said, don't worry, Orchestras, particularly in England, or they were then, I'm not saying now, but back in the 60s, it was if you were known to be in rock and roll. But Frank wanted to know the answer to them. He said, how do I deal with these people? So I said, well, I have heard some of your stuff, Frank. And I said, I don't think that the English, which are very conservative, I think they're kind of put off by the title, Why Does It Hurt When I Pee? And so he looked at me like, what? What's wrong with that? I said, well, I don't know. You got to start gently with orchestras, But these days it's not quite that way. There's some amazing, brilliant players who are just fresh out of music college, and if they haven't heard of my music, then their parents have. So. The last concert I did on the East Coast, I had these young violinists coming up and saying, my dad really likes you. She said, I haven't listened to your music myself, but it's really great to be playing it. And he said, my dad would be so pleased. That's the sort of...
So now I understand you're working on new classical compositions.
Yes. If you were to come back to my place, right now it's in being refurbished, but what I call my music room it's just a whole load of scribbled manuscripts, stuff which I'll leave till later. I'll get back to it, and I've got a whole pile of it. Sometimes I label them, and other times, just out of curiosity, I might find something which I jotted down about 2-3 years ago, and go, well, that's obviously my handwriting. Stick it up on the piano, and and you come up, and something triggers in the end. You think, actually, I think I could actually do something with this. A lot. That's happened many times, actually. So, quite honestly, nothing really gets wasted at the end. I can dig something up and go, well, maybe it needs this different edge to it, and so it is challenging, and it's very rewarding in the end when you find that one sonority matches with another. That I think at the beginning with ELP, Carl seemed very excited about the piece, and but I don't think it was really the direction that Greg wanted to go in at that time. Yeah. And it's been well stated in other interviews, but I think that possibly Greg may have thought that it was an opportunity for me to sort of show off, so to speak, which couldn't have been further from the truth, really, because it wasn't a question of sitting down and automatically playing. It really took a lot of thought, and working at the piano and testing one sonority against another, and then tempo-wise, and of course it does change around quite a bit.
Do you test them against one another? What is your process for doing that?
Just listen. That's really it, and I think the ultimate proof is in the proof of the pudding is in the eating, I suppose.
Is it a case of recording, piecing together, and listening back, or
not in the 70s. I mean, number one, there was nothing like Pro Tools, which you have today. Nothing like that. I may have had a small cassette tape recorder. Later on, a Revox, reel-to-reel. But I never relied on that, and I still don't today. I've got a computer, but I don't use a computer to write. I find it more satisfying to actually. I suppose it's a bit like how an artist feels when he draws a sketch and then decides to bring the oils in or the water colours and fill it out, or maybe just keep it as a pencil sketch. It's the same with music, and I can imagine how an artist feels when they're almost at it. Should I do this one extra stroke? is that going to make it better, or is that going to completely ruin the whole thing? And that's why I'm not an artist. I use my ears and rely on that, you know.
The one thing I read was sometimes your compositions and melodic ideas can be influenced by sounds from nature.
Oh yeah.
Your pet parrot.
Oh.
It can come from all kinds of places. Tell me about that.
Oh gosh. It's very disturbing for me to have an ear like that, and I might suddenly hear something, or I had an African grey parrot, and it was very, very vocal, and he came out with this one tune. I just was startled. He whistled it, and I ran to the piano and put it down and added some chords to it, and I haven't recorded it, but it's quite amazing. And poor Smokey was what his name was. He's gone now, but while he was on this planet, I think he consistently was looking and ripping up my mail, trying to find out his check, from BMI or wherever, ASCAP. Very, very funny. The other time was that I can remember when I lived in Sussex. I had a very, very lovely home, Tudor building, and the wrought iron gate, when you swung it open, would make this tune, and I was then married, and I said to the wife, I said, "Don't oil that, keep it there." So when Greg and I were working on, it was with Cozy Powell, and I wrote it, and he said, "Well, that's good. Where did that come from?" I said, "Come outside here." I swung the gate open. He went, "Wow." So yeah.
That was Learning to Fly?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's right. Wow, you are informed.
What sound did that gate make to influence that tune?
Just the notes. Something like that, yeah.
The Emerson live CD just came out. It feels like that might be the last hurrah of this relationship. Is that accurate to say? I think Greg and I possibly had different ideas about what it would relate to, but I was approached, I think it was probably around about 2010, may have been 2009, by a very good friend and who manages as well, a guy called Martin Darville, and I had a meeting, actually not here, but here in Los Angeles, with an agent by the name of Jim Lenz. So they had this idea. They said, what about you and Greg going out? Because Carl Palmer is with Asia at the moment. So I thought, well, I'd had experience
working with my own band and with Mark Bonilla, and so I realised that a duo concept could work. Anyway, it was really, the way it was put to me was okay, let's just strip it down, let's cut back. Of course, with the LP or anything to do with the LP, it's never cuts back. But I thought, yes, I mean, as I said, I experimented with Mark Bonilla and the bass player Travis Davis, and I realised it was it can work quite successfully. The whole concept. And they said, well, what we thought would be to have just you two go out as a lead up to the High Voltage Festival in London. I said, oh, what is it? Oh, they said it's going to be a big festival. Anyway, Martin felt that if Greg and I went out as a duo, it would be a perfect warm-up to getting Carl in when Carl is finished with Asia. Well, not finished, but when he's got a break. Be a great warm-up, really. And so I thought, well, terrific. Let's give it a go. And we did, and I got off to a bit of a rocky start.
I think to say it got off to a rocky start would be an understatement. What was going on there that's never really been talked about? What happened?
What happened? Well, the honest truth is that the first gig was at Cleveland. Was in Cleveland, a very important city for ELP, and I'm not going to lie about this. The exact truth is that although we'd both rehearsed consistently for over a month, 6 weeks or something, which I thought was way beyond what we needed. And in Cleveland, I wanted to get a sound check because I had the Moog synthesizer, and that takes a lot of tuning. I needed to get the balance right in order for things to work out. And Greg was still working on learning on his monitors, and was asking me chord changes to this, and was just changing. I said, Greg, listen, I need to get a sound check. And the audience were already coming in, they were filing in. And I completely, I said, that's it. I can't take this. Greg, you've had over a month. I've given you all the charts. I can't take this. And I really couldn't. And the first time in my life, I've never done it before, I walked out. And I said to the tour manager, I said, that is it. I can't do it. So it was a horrible thing, I mean, I didn't feel good about it, but I just felt that there's just no way this concert can go forward, because my rig is very complicated, and I need at least about an hour to make sure everything's functioning. And to have done that show would have been a complete and utter disaster. And Greg wrote on his Facebook something like, oh well, I guess it happens to all of us. It just happened that Keith got stage fright. And I knew that the road crew all looked at it and went, well, we know that is certainly not the case. The blame was on me. That was it. I was really, really furious. And what didn't help was the fact that I didn't have the management weren't there to come to my, no, Keith is right. Greg, you've had six bloody weeks to have got this together. No, I definitely didn't have stage fright. It's just anyway, I'm glad I've sorted that out now. Yeah, I have gone through stage fright, but not, but I think that helps. It helps get the impetus together, it adds the energy, and I sort of, if I feel that way now, which I don't actually think I do, I couldn't give a shit, really,
It's not my goal to get into this thing with Greg, which has been famous.
No, well, I don't want to do it either. No, I admire the guy,
No, but what I do want to ask you is that despite the tension that you two have had, the fact is incredible music has come out of that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, did the tension contribute to the creation of the music, of the great ELP works and albums? Because if you talk to, the guys in Yes, they'll say, without that tension, that music would not have got made. I'm wondering if the same holds true for ELP.
Well, quite honestly, I think that I could have done what with what I did with probably any other unit, But the great thing about ELP, of course, was that we kind of dealt with all the different aspects that go along with making a band, and that means getting the right accountancy, the right management, the right lawyer, the right agents, knowing the right promoters. Now, Greg was well into all of those aspects, which is something which I just didn't have the time for, I mean, Greg liked to socialise with promoters, and it was obviously to ELP's benefit. Whereas I would say, no, what's the point of going out for all these dinners, and sitting around and... I mean, Greg is very good at that. He's got a very good business mind, and I think a lot of the problems that we did have in the very early days was that I felt that he should be putting more of that genius into more songs. It was always kind of frustrating for me, having written something and saying, wondering if Greg had actually written any lyrics. And when they were slow in coming, I would often say to him, well, can we, if you haven't written any, can you collaborate with somebody? He said, no, I don't collaborate. Well, thankfully he did change his thinking on that one. Eventually he said, well, if there was anybody to work with, it's Pete Sinfield. I said, oh, I love Pete. You sure you'd like to? Yeah, okay, well, we'll give it a go. I was so grateful. God. And when Pete Sinfield arrived, things moved very, very, very swiftly, and I was so happy that Greg and Pete got on. They did have their obvious ups and downs, but at least I was out of the picture. Things were getting done, and that was good.
I found it interesting that your autobiography just sort of flew right by Black Moon and In the Hot Seat, barely a mention. And I'm wondering, how do you personally look back at those albums in that period of the LP?
Black Moon. God, that was with Carl, wasn't it? Black Moon.
Yeah, that was the '92 album. Yeah, with Mark Mancino.
He was producing it. Yeah, great producer. That was a plus factor for me to have. I don't think Greg was too happy that somebody was stepping in and producing, but I felt that it's changing. It's good to have a producer because you need another set of ears. Oh, there's some great stuff on it. I think In the Hot Seat, there's one or two tracks. It was just after I'd had, and there's no secret about this, I'd had arm surgery. And which threw me back a little bit, but it turns out that I wouldn't recommend surgery for anyone, I just remember coming to. They wanted to move my ulnar nerve. Now I got pretty skinny arms, but you can see the result there. You see that big incision down there? That's pretty much the whole length of my forearm. And there was absolutely no need for the surgeon to have gone there. As far as I knew, the ulnar nerve, which is your funny bone, they were going to just transfer it to the center of my elbow. And they thought, well, while I'm out, well, they've got me under the anesthetic. Oh, let's have a look around here then, So I came to, and the surgeon just happily said to me, "Oh, while you were out, we thought we'd just have a look at the medial or the radial nerve. Your ulnar nerve has been transferred over to another place. So you can bang my elbow. I won't get a damn thing. But if you hit there, that's where my funny bone is at the moment."
What did that mean for your ability to play?
It obviously took a lot of the recovery time was when I decided to get a computer and write my autobiography, because it was explained to me by the therapists. So, I went through some therapy after the operation. It was a hellish time, but I thought, well, rather than not do anything, I'll write my autobiography.
So going back to the Black Moon and Hot Seat albums, do you have any thoughts about the end result of those records?
Yes, well, you see, In the Hot Seat was just after I was, pretty much I was in the recuperating stage. But I thought it was very constructive, and I felt that Carl was a wonderful influence. you know, I worked a lot in the studio, and Greg would work at home and then come in much later on in the afternoon. We basically booked the studio. And Carl and I remember Carl coming, and he was very encouraging, you know. "Oh, I like that," he'd say. Yeah, do that again." So I think, you know, that album was thanks to Carl. There again, I think Greg liked to just kind of use it as an excuse. Keith had surgery, and he was like, you know, kind of echoes of stage fright, I suppose, you know, like anything to make an excuse, you know, like, yeah, Keith had surgery, and so therefore it wasn't a good album, you know.
Originally, the man with the long black coat was supposed to be a sidelong suite. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. Oh God! It was a pretty epic number, and which I'd arranged, and. I think the producer of that was Keith Olsen, and they liked it, but they said, "Well, why? You know, this is a Bob Dylan piece. Why give all the credits to Bob Dylan?" I said, "Well, because I wrote this as in homage to Bob Dylan, and it's the way I see it. It's got great imagery, you know, almost like a Western Clint Eastwood sort of thing, and the mystery and stuff, and but Keith Olsen and Greg went, "Well, no, we don't need to give Bob Dylan any. We like this bit." I said, "But that goes with the man in the long black coat. You can't separate them." "Yeah, we can." And I went, "Oh." You know, that's the way it ended up. But it was a big epic piece.
Why weren't you able to push your idea through?
Well, a lot of times for sake of peace and quiet, and we ran the band sort of like diplomatically. I mean, even today with the guys that I play with, Mark Bernier and that lot, I don't rule out the fact that maybe I could be wrong. You know, that maybe they do have a point. Let's give it a go. So, you know, I could see the point that of not making the Bob Dylan piece the epic that I wanted. I could see that it made more sense, and you know, I don't think it was just Bob Dylan's song, you know, and as I've been doing with the Nice since the 60s, tracks of Bob Dylan's like She Belongs to Me, My Back Pages. I used to turn, the great thing about Bob Dylan is that it lends itself so easy. You can take it anywhere you want to go with it. Country Pie, for instance, which I really loved, and I really enjoyed playing it with the Nice. And there's some amazing recordings. But I merged it with Bach's Brandenburg Concerto No. 3 in G, and it suddenly made it. Oh no, it wasn't in G, was it? It was the one in D. Yeah. But it was one of the Brandenburgs anyway, and yeah, I mean, Dylan's music, you can put it in any sort of category at all and throw it around. But when in the hot seat, when we did The Man in the Long Black Coat, it was just The Man in the Long Black Coat.
Prior to Black Moon, you did a solo album called Changing States. I've never seen you talk about this album.
Crikey. It was, from my recollection, well, it was definitely recorded before ELP got hold of one of them and called it decided that, you know. See, that's the way things often worked. You know, I would go on a solo project and I play it to some record company and they go, oh, that's good. But it'd be even better if you play it with ELP. I said, well, don't you release it? Well, no, it's good, but we can sell it a lot better if you're with, if you do it with Greg and Carl.
The album did get made, Changing States, so...
Yeah, oh, well, mine, yeah, but I think a lot of people thought that came after, but I forget what ELP called it, but...
Montagues and Capulets?
That was on there, yeah. I think that was recorded, I think the late Kevin Gilbert produced that. And I remember how it came about. Patrick Leonard called me in England and said, we want you to come over here. I've got a studio and you've got it for like 2 months, open-ended. We just want you to come here and play. We've got a great talented producer. He was about 22 or something, called Kevin Gilbert, and I thought, well, yeah, all right. He said, you know, just fly yourself out here and you'll have a whole studio. So it was very, very productive. And as it happened, I had some stuff to go, you know, to work on, and it was ideal. And I mean, of course, Kevin Gilbert, just nutter genius. So sad that he's gone. Yeah, so that was it. There was quite a lot of times like that where I did whole bunches of demos. I think Geffen Records gave me something like a $10,000 advance if I could come up with 10 demos. I went, well, okay, that's great, yeah, I'll do that. Came up with 10 demos. Another record company heard it. Do you know what? This would be great if you played it with Greg Lake and Carl Palmer. There just seemed to be no way of getting over it. And the thing is, you know, and I think every musician will agree with this, the demos always come out, sound better than how it ends up, you know, overproduced or whatever. Because you've got that energy level going, you know. And, but that always seemed to happen with me. And, of course, you know, it did. being attracted by a big record company, and they go, "Do you realise, you know, you?" And Greg would probably call me up and say, "Keith, we've got to do this. I mean, they're offering. Do you understand how much they're offering to do this?" And I could see my bank balances dwindling. I thought, well, okay, well, I'll go. Yeah, let's do it. You know.
Is that how Black Moon came about?
Pretty much, yeah.
So you did a solo piano piece dedicated to Kevin Gilbert.
I did actually do a piece called For Kevin. Kevin Gilbert recorded Close to Home originally, and that was in Pat Leonard's studio. And I was going through a divorce at the time, so I remember Kevin Gilbert saying, "You should call it Close to Losing Your Home."
What did Kevin mean to you? Tell me about your friendship and your working relationship.
Well, I mean, number one, a very, very good-looking guy. Not that I'm into guys, but I mean, quite honestly, I mean, yeah, and extremely talented. He would really. He was very good at producing. Often I would play something. He said, "I think you could do a lot better." What? How old are you? You know, to be told by this little whippersnapper. What do you mean? That was great. No, try another different tactic. And geez, okay, all right. Well, you know, I sort of, you know, there again, that's the way I think. You know, okay, this you may have a point. I'll give it a go. But if it doesn't work out, then I'm keeping that, okay? You know. And normally it would be he proved to be very right. And the other part of his genius was, I think there was one piece, I can't remember what it was. He said, "Oh, you need some clarinet on there." I said, "Well, we're going to get a clarinet from?" I said, "No, there's one line in the studio here." I said, "Do you play clarinet?" He said, "No, but I'll learn." And about in half an hour, he'd actually learned how to play a clarinet. Amazing.
I heard he could play literally any instrument he picked up.
Yeah. Well, if he couldn't play it immediately, he'd play it like at least about half an hour or 45 minutes later. The last I heard from him, he called me up and he said he's formed this club called the Tuesday Night Club or something.
Tuesday Night Music Club.
Yeah. And he said the concept is, he said, we're just, most of the musicians I've spoken to are just absolutely fed up with the way the recording industry is. And it's too stagnant, you know. There's no sex, drugs, rock and roll anymore, you know. Not like it was with you guys in the 60s. I'm going, well, wait a second, Kev. It really wasn't that way with me, you know. I mean, God, I think a lot of people seem to think that we're all overindulging in drugs and whatever. It certainly wasn't that way with me. I know you can see pictures of me, and I've probably got a bottle of cognac or Courvoisier standing by, but I can guarantee you that was all mainly water.
Really?
Yeah. it was such a stupid kind of sense of bravado, I suppose, a bit like following in the steps of Janis Joplin, you know, who had a bottle of Southern Comfort on stage, but she did actually have a real pure, neat Southern Comfort. So I thought, well, this would be great to, I'll do the same thing, you know, play a piano solo, and I poured half of the Courvoisier out and filled it up with water. And I stopped doing that because when I got back to England, I got some fan mail from some guy who said, you don't realise when you do that what it means to guys like myself, he said, that have problems. And that really struck home. I thought, well, that is fucking stupid. It's irresponsible, and no, I didn't do that anymore. You know, yeah, I like these days. I like maybe a glass of wine or something, but that doesn't go much further than that. I mean, I don't do drugs or anything like that.
In my age category at age 45, believe it or not, my first introduction to your music was Emerson, Lake and Powell.
Good God.
Tell me about the highs and lows of that band.
Polydor asked me to do a bunch of demos, and a very good friend of mine got to hear them, a guy called Phil Carson. Again, it was suggested that Greg should, they liked the demos, but if Greg sang on it, it would be a hit, you know. So we went into the studio, and it was good. It was very productive work, you know, with working with Greg. We did some great stuff, you know. He'd heard the demos, but he wanted to change some of the lyrics. Okay, I wasn't bothered about that. But some good stuff there. Lay Down Your Guns, I think. And oh yeah, we needed a drummer. So I'd known Cozy Powell for a long time. I'd hang out with him and sometimes with Jeff Beck, and so it was kind of suggested, well, why don't we get Cozy Powell? And I said, okay. Well, I know that Cozy's like kind of a heavy metal drummer. I wonder if he could handle the sort of stuff that we've been doing. So called up Cozy, and lovely guy. We had exactly the same interests. I had 2 motorcycles, a Kawasaki 1100, and he had a Suzuki 1000 or something. And you know, we were kind of crazy. And the feel that Cozy gave not only to the ELP's standard sort of repertoire was really, really solid. He was a very optimistic, fun-going guy, you know. and well, we bonded very well together. We inevitably went on tour, and I suppose it was at that time that we suddenly realised, oh my God, he's got the same initials as Carl Palmer. And honestly, it really hadn't occurred at that time, you know, that perhaps we could call it ELP. At the beginning, I don't think Carl was too happy about that. But I think he realised at the end, well, he's got his own band. He had. I think he was touring with Asia then, and but he realised that, okay, well, I'm getting some royalties from Asia, and if ELP keep going, it'll keep the catalogue alive. So therefore, I won't be doing too badly out of it. So why go to lawyers and say you can't use the logo ELP? Actually, that logo was one which I designed. I sat with the manager of ELP, Stuart Young, and said, well, you know, we need a logo. And basically sketched it out, right? And but I mean, an artist obviously came in and grabbed the idea and got the logo formed, which is what stuck, you know.
Back to Emerson, Lake and Powell, what can you tell me about the second album that never got completed?
I don't think there was any attempt to make a second album.
I thought there was material recorded.
No, I'd probably recorded some material, but during the course of the Emerson, Lake and Powell tour to promote the album, there were some altercations between Greg and Cozy, and at the end of the tour, Cozy basically decided to move on. I woke up in my hotel room one morning and I could hear all this yelling going on, and what the hell is that? So I put my head round the door and there's Cozy. Where the fuck is he? I'm gonna kill him. I went, oh. I don't know what the altercation was. I have no idea. No idea at all.
Robert Berry said that when you guys did the 3 tour, that it was non-stop mayhem backstage. I was wondering if you could tell me what he meant by that.
Oh, well, it certainly was lots of fun working with Robert, who's, you know, very talented, and you know, Carl Palmer is a very funny guy as well. So you put the two of them together. That was on the Geffen label, wasn't it? The 3,
yes.
Yeah. And I remember there was a John Kolodner who used to credit himself John Kolodner of John Kolodner. Anyway, John said, we want radio playable material, and you guys have got to have some women. So, you know, I of course, you know, being sort of like hot-blooded guys, I suppose, which I wouldn't call myself that now in my 70s, but yeah, they wanted chicks, and I thought, oh, geez.
You mean as a backing singers?
Yeah, that's the way it started off, and then it was quite fun auditioning, actually. Where like one after the other come in, you know, and it was like, Carl and I and Robert, we'd all be arguing over, I like that one. No, she's too skinny. I like skinny. You know. I don't think it really came down to the fact of whether they could actually sing. I don't think that really came into it, but they could sing actually. And we had the budget, and we had to kit we had 3 ladies. So Carl decided to go down to Frederick's of Hollywood, which is like a lingerie shop. And he chose all their clothes, and we had them model them, and I said to the guys, yes, and Robert agreed. I said, listen, you know, nobody, you don't get involved. Do not get involved. Well, I certainly didn't. I was then married. God, you can imagine what my ex-wife thought about it at that time. Not easy telling your wife, you know, well, you know, going on the road with, oh yeah, you know. No, I certainly didn't, and neither did Robert. But it was a happy tour, no doubt about that. But I remember sort of halfway through the tour, I got a letter from a fan, who actually I'm quite close friends with him, and he said, "Shameful, how can you have these scantily dressed women when you've written a beautiful song in memory of Tony Stratton Smith?" And the song was On My Way Home. And I thought, well, yeah, whoever this guy is, he's got a point. He'd left his telephone number, and I was back in my hotel room and dialed the number, and his wife answered the phone. I said, "Hi, I don't think I should mention his name, but very, very good friend and very helpful and everything else." So I said so his wife said, "Can I say who's calling?" So I said, "It's Keith Emerson here." What? So I can hear her yelling through to her husband saying, "You've got Keith Emerson on the line here." No, don't fucking wind me up, sort of attitude, you know. And he said, he came to the phone like, "This isn't a joke, is it?" I said, "No, it's Keith. I got your letter." "Oh, well, I didn't really mean it to be that hard." I said, "No, you've got a point, you know." And so, yeah, we stayed in touch ever since, really. And I think, well, we started off with 3 girls, and they went down to 2, and then we just had the 1. And that didn't work out very well.
The At the Movies box set just got re-released.
Yeah.
I was wondering what you consider your personal soundtrack highlights.
Ooh. Well, the first soundtrack I did was Inferno for Dario Argento in Italy. And it was a horror film. And actually I was then living in the Bahamas. It might sound very extravagant, but a lot of musicians got out of England because of the fact that the taxes were like 90%. The English government, Inland Revenue took 90%. There are a lot of bands like The Who, The Stones. We can't. What's the point of like burning yourself out, touring all year, and you've got to give 90% to the government? So we all left, and that's why I lived in the Bahamas. And Stuart Young called me up. He said, "Would you like to be flown to Italy?" Well, yes, sure, fine. So there I'm on the plane, and I meet with Dario Argento, and I go to the film studio, and in one afternoon he played, I was shown 2 of his films, and all very gory horror films, and that was it. I got the job. So that was my first film score, and it was done in the very traditional way. Filmed it in Cinevox Studios in Rome, and it was all done live. They had the actual movie kind of streaming. First of all, it was important to rehearse the orchestra, and they had a great conductor, Godfrey Salmon, who helped out amazingly with that and some of the arrangements. And we rehearsed the orchestra, and then what we would do would be to run the film behind, and you'd see the streamer come across when you knew there was a point to hit. So you had this, you either slowed down or you sped up a little bit, so that you when you hit the right thing, when some guy had his head chopped off, or some guy was being attacked by rats. Oh, it was great fun. Really worked out wonderfully. And I went to Rome for the premiere, and it was just terrific to look at the audience's faces. They were hiding under the seats. That women were running out, screaming. It really was. I mean, you watch it today, it's like nothing. It's pretty tame compared with what you see today. But then it was pretty scary.
What is it about soundtrack composition that appealed to you so much?
Well, I think rather than sort of coming up with some sort of fictitious concept album, and with the so-called concept albums which I have recorded in the past, I just really went along with it and didn't have a working title. I think the working title for Brain Salad Surgery was Whip Some Skull on You. And now a lot of people might wonder what that's all about, but I don't think it takes much, of the imagination. And eventually it was became Brain Salad Surgery. Mainly that was taken from one line of a Dr. John lyric. And I'm diversing here.
We were talking about what you enjoyed about the process. You said instead of dealing with fictitious concepts, it allowed you to work with someone else's concept.
Well, that's it. Yes. I mean, I'm quite an avid reader. I read lots of books and stuff. They present to you pretty much to me anyway, an idea of if it was made into a movie, that that you've got a bit of substance there. You've got the storyline, so it automatically sets the time period, whether it's Victorian, whether it's science fiction, whether it's this, so you've got something to go by, and the only obstacles really whether you've got the director and the producer that stand over you and want to put their 2 pennies worth in, and you have to sort of learn that all that you've written is not going to be in the film. So you really have to sort of expect, well, they're gonna edit this out. They're gonna edit this. Actually, in the case of Inferno, I don't think Dario Argento changed one bit. The only thing I remember was that he came into the studio and he said he wanted to use Verdi's Requiem, I think, and because it was actually being sung on the thing, and he wanted me to do a version of it, and I did a version which was in 5/4, and after he'd heard the entire, he said, "Well, where's the Verdi?" I said, "It's there. That's this track here. It's in 5/4." He went da 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 da. He went, "Oh, I think that's the only comment that he made, really."
You almost single-handedly transform the perception of keyboard players into, genuine badass stage people. Keyboard players is a countercultural presence, which is a tough thing to do when you're one guy behind a stack of keyboards. And I'm wondering, at what point did you realize that you could actually have that impact on an audience? Do you remember a point where you wielded that presence?
Yes, I do. I was playing briefly with a band called the VIPs. Very good blues band. Very soulful. I remember the singer. He did really gutsy vocals, and we played in Hamburg. And a lot of the guys had befriended ladies from the Reeperbahn. They enjoyed being looked after, these ladies. So they did have money. And we had shows to do. I think we played the same club that the Beatles played in Hamburg, and we had to do so many sets every night. The first set I think started around about 6 o'clock, and then we went on at 8, or no, maybe 10, and then another one at 2, and the last one was at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was pretty tired. But the rest of the band just kept going. They were vibed. I couldn't understand it, I didn't touch anything, I don't think I even had a drink or anything like that, So we went down to this club, and I remember the name of the lady. It was her name. Bloody Mary. That was what she called herself. Very big, bosomy, probably a madam, and who sort of sided up to me. I thought, oh God, I don't want this, So the guys are saying, come on, you know, take one of these pills. I said, no, what is it? You know, I think it was something like Preludin or something. And I said, no. It's, well, we all do, you know, this is why we keep going all night long. So I went, okay. So I took one and waited for about 20 minutes and nothing happened. Half an hour. I remember the Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane came on the system. Now I'd roughly heard it before, but I'd never heard the Beatles like this. And I just went really, I was dancing on the table and, you know, from what I can remember. And in a moment of madness, I said to the road manager, I said, don't worry, I'll drive the van tomorrow. The rest of the guys were staying because their girlfriends were flying them from Hamburg to northern France, which was where the next gig was. So I said, I'll drive the truck, and which I did, and I couldn't sleep, whatever the hell this thing was, but just like I think some woman followed me back to the hotel room, and my poor John Thomas had diminished to, it was a bit like, I mean, I don't think I actually managed to achieve anything at all. It would have been like throwing a sausage down Oxford Street. I'm pleased to say that the old soldier is okay, but don't take Preludin if you want to achieve any degree of success. So I drove and I smashed the van up and got to the gig, and I'm still buzzing from this drug I'd had in Hamburg, and got on stage, and it was a farming community, and this fight broke out in the audience. So I thought, great, well, I'll join in. Not physically there, but I just threw the organ around and did all that stuff, and it was a complete barroom sort of brawl. I thought, well, I'll show them. I just went absolutely nuts on stage, and the fight stopped, and the promoter's standing in the wings. He said, keep going, because you know the fight has stopped, and everybody's looking at, what the hell is this guy doing? So that was it. The next day, I mean, I completely crashed, and they said, well, you really have to do that again. And I said, no, I can't do that. But it sort of took off, I suppose, really. It may have been something to do with, I don't know whether I'd seen Hendrix at that point, but I know that I think the Who were definitely in full flying colours, and but I mean, the next night, I think it was, we played Manchester, and the audience and the band said, you've got to do that. And of course, it didn't quite work for me. Now, I suppose at that particular point, one would naturally think, well, he needs more Preludin, he's got to get another tablet. But to do it absolutely straight was difficult, and very strange reaction I got from the Manchester audience, who just like looked at me like I'd gone completely berserk. So that was really the start of it. it just developed from there. And I found out that you could sustain notes on the Hammond, and by sticking things in the keyboards. And at first I started doing it with a screwdriver. I'd seen this organ player, I remember his name, a guy called Don Shin. And I'd seen him at the Marquee Club, and he was the most weirdest sort of character. He sort of like dressed like a schoolboy, I suppose, and used to take sips of whiskey from a teaspoon, and I looked at and they just like giggled, you know. And his Hammond organ, the back fell off of it, and causing more hilarity in the audience. And this poor guy, Don Shin, has got his screwdriver, and he's trying to repair the Hammond while he's playing. But everybody, there was a bunch of girls in the front row, but laughing their heads off. I left the Marquee Club. I thought, there's something there. And so I started to... I don't think Don Shin really meant it. It didn't... He was a very good player. I don't know where he is now, but brilliant player. But I don't think he really intended anybody to laugh at him, which made it even more funnier, because things were definitely going wrong. His instrument was absolutely collapsing around him. So I thought, well, I've got to give this a go. So I thought, well, okay, rather than sticking a screwdriver into the keyboard, I'll get a knife. And we had a roadie at the time, none other than Lemmy from Motorhead, who said to me, if you're going to use a knife, use a proper one, and gave me 2 Hitler Youth daggers. So that was the start of that, and then having stuck them into the Hammond organ, it was a question of getting rid of them. And well, I tried to become a knife thrower, but I wasn't very good at it. What you do, you jam them in the keyboard, and then you pull them out and just drop them on the floor. That's a bit daisy, you know. So the obvious thing was that I had to learn knife throwing, and I don't think I actually became very good at it. And it became very apparent when a lot of them would glance off and hit the drummer, who was not very happy about that. And at the end of one of the shows, he was sporting a huge gash on his forehead. He said, "Who the fuck do you think you are, Errol Flynn?"
I wanted to ask you about the fact that you're one of the most celebrated musicians in rock history, but you're also one of the most viciously criticized as well. How have you dealt with the criticism on an ongoing basis? What do you do with that when it comes at you?
You use it to your own benefit. You know, I do take criticism to heart, and not so much now. One of the things that I suppose got to me was one critique. It may have been in the New Musical Express, or I really can't remember, but the criticism was that Emerson can't write his own music. He relies on adapting the classics. And that kind of got to me. And I thought, right, well, I knew that I was writing, but I thought to really to get my point across. Okay, so I've written the Thoughts of Emilus Dabjak, I've written a whole lot of stuff, Trilogy, Take a Pebble with Greg Lake. a lot of epic material. Tarkus, which has now proved itself in prog history, I suppose. But I thought, well, this isn't enough. I'm going to write a piano concerto, which is what I did. At that time, I had a beautiful barn studio, could afford then a very nice Steinway 9-foot grand, which really inspired me to start writing. And so it came about, and I found myself recording it with the London Philharmonic Orchestra, who weren't that helpful to begin with, but it actually took, I had to have 2 sessions with them, because the first session didn't work out at all well. It was just the fact that, okay, he's a rock musician, what's a rock musician doing? Writing a piano concerto. And so that was it. It pushed me on. I thought, well, you know, and I'm pleased to say that, I mean, today that's being performed by some great classical pianists. Most of all, Jeffrey Beagle, who plays it wonderfully. I've actually, I did record it. There is a live recording, but I don't think that's been released yet, of me playing it. But I certainly did the last movement, and I thought, well, I've rocked up other classical musicians' pieces, well, I'm going to do the same to mine, you know. So I did a kind of a rock adaptation of the last movement. But, and I'm also happy to say that with all of the adaptations which I've been happy to have performed and played with, and with Greg and Carl, and also with Mark Bonnier, if that composer has been alive, that they have they've given their full consent, you know. And I can quote Aaron Copland, Alberto Ginastera, even to a degree Leonard Bernstein.
I was told I had to ask you about what it was like to meet the Queen.
Oh God! Oh, hilarious! Absolutely hilarious. Well, it was a Silver Jubilee, I think, and I was invited to play along with a lot of other musicians. The great Stan Tracy, who's a great jazz pianist, sadly no longer with us. He was there with his son Clark Tracy, and trio. And there was some jazz quartet, and they were all pretty high up there. And I was invited to play some solo piano, and then afterwards was lined up to be presented to Her Majesty, and you have to learn the correct etiquette. You don't. If she does speak to you, the first thing you say is, "Yes, Your Majesty." You could do, but you only use that once. After that, if she shows any interest in talking to you, you address her as Ma'am. So I was in this line, and the jazz quartet were before me, so she came along the line, you know, and came up to me, and I said, Your Majesty, yes. I said, so what do you do? I said, well, I play keyboards and synthesizers. Oh no, actually, she said, what do you... I said, well, actually, I played at your daughter's coming out party, Princess Anne, right? Oh, what do you play? I said, well, tonight, Mom, because you could use Mom then, you know. She obviously wanted to talk, so I said, well, I've been playing just piano tonight, but sometimes synthesizers. Synthesizers? Shrugged the shoulders and walked on down the line, you know. And I was warned before by a very good friend of mine, Jim Davison, who's met the Queen many times. And probably, as Eric Clapton will tell you, they can't remember meeting you. You know, they meet so many people. So, but Jim Davison advised me, if she comes up and speaks to you, talk about horses. I said, I know absolutely nothing about horses. So she knew absolutely nothing about synthesizers. So she walked on. And then she's followed by her husband, with his hands behind his back and looking, sort of checks us up and down, and he looks back at the jazz quartet, and he looks at me. He said, do you play with this lot? I said, no sir, no, I'm solo piano actually tonight. I don't think he knew what a piano was, but he said, do you bang or do you scrape? I said, excuse me? do you bang or do you scrape? So I said, well sir, with the pianoforte being a member of the percussion department, I suppose I bang. And he sort of like, well, keep on banging. And walked on. It was the funniest. It got funnier. I think Kate Bush was there. Brian May. They didn't know who the hell they were. There was somebody from one of the 80s bands or something, and so the Duke of Edinburgh went up to one of them and said, what do you do? Oh, well sir, I'm a singer-songwriter. Didn't get that at all. He goes to Kate Bush, what do you do? She said, well, I'm a singer-songwriter, sir. So this rather confused the Duke of Edinburgh. And he said, do you two work together? Well, no, sir, we don't. We do know, but we don't work together. Why not? You know. The promoter, Harvey Goldsmith, he's got like a kind of designer stubble going on, well he did then, I don't know what he's got now, where it's a beard or whatever. So the Duke of Edinburgh went up to him and said, is your beard on or off? Designer stuff, beard on or off? He said, well, so he looked over at this sort of like seafaring gentleman who had got a really full beard. He said, that's a beard. Yours is not a beard. And it just got worse from there on, actually. It was actually Harvey Goldsmith that told me these stories, that Barry Humphries, who's otherwise probably known more like as Dame Edna, she was there with a lot of other dames, Dame Vera Lynn, Dame Shirley Bassey, Dame Cleo Lane, and so apparently Barry Humphries, who was, I think he was out of the Dame Edna image, and he just wore a straight suit, so the Queen wanted to speak to him, and she confessed that she was very, very concerned about the forthcoming Buckingham Palace goings on, with some guitar chappie playing up on the roof. And she was very worried about the foliage, because there were lots of very valuable plants in the grounds of Buckingham Palace. And also about the noise. She said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have to attend. So Barry Humphries said to her, he said, first of all, Mum, forget about your lawn. Your lawn's history. And as far as the noise, he said, you'll be able to hear it all the way from Buckingham Palace to Windsor Castle. Which horrified her immensely, you know. They really are quite funny. But no, I really admire her, you know, and there were photographers snapping me when I was having the brief chat with the Queen, and my mum, bless her, she's passed on now, but she wanted I've got to have a photograph of my son with the Queen of England. So I wondered how I could get hold of a copy. So I called up Stan Tracy, the great jazz pianist. He had a very dry sense of humour. And I said, hi Stan, it's Keith. Oh, hi Heath. I said, do you know where I could get a copy of the picture that was taken when we were in the line-up to be presented to Her Majesty? He said no. He said, fuck that. If I want a picture of the Queen, I'll go down to the post office and buy a stamp.
I need to ask you about your one and only karaoke experience.
Oh, that's even worse. I mean, number one, I sing so badly that deaf people refuse to read my lips. And anyway, so I just got to know Mari, who loves karaoke. And God forbid she wants me to go to karaoke tonight. Not going to go. There's just no way. I'm sure it's going to come up and say, oh, come on, please come. No. But anyway, it was in the beginning of our relationship. And she said, well, okay, I'll come down with you. No, I'd never heard her sing. She played piano, actually, and she's a very fine pianist. So I thought, okay, I'll go down there. So we found this club, and thank God nobody knew who I was. So we get in there and sit down at this booth, and there's the DJ, and he's got a library of what you can choose from. So anyway, Mari chose a couple of things. She got up and I thought, wow, that's not an embarrassment. I was really dreading it. Oh God, you know. At least nobody knew who I was, and if she really turned out to be absolutely dire, then it wouldn't matter to me anyway, you know. So we sat back, and I think she had a red wine or something, and I had a Chardonnay, then another Chardonnay, and decided, this is okay. I think I could give this a go. So I looked at the library of what you could choose from, and to my great delight, I saw Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Welcome back, my friends. So I thought, yeah, all right, well, maybe I'll just, so I'm, you know, Mari said, you've got to get up there and give it a, and I went, oh, all right. So much later on in the evening, I went up to the DJ, and who didn't know who I was, and I don't think at that time, I don't think I knew who I was either, and put my name down for Welcome Back, My Friends. So to my horror, my name is announced, and I go up on the stand and watch for the little dots, you know, and the intro, and okay, there's 4 beats, you're in. All right. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. I'm so glad you could attend. Come inside. And I thought, my God, I know I wrote this, but this is going at a hell of a rate. Don't know how Greg sang this. So I struggled all the way through it, and I noticed that some of the lyrics were wrong. For obvious reasons, they left out the lyric, 7 virgins and a mule, keep it cool. They've changed it. And so while I'm sort of like reading the lyrics, I'm going, that's not right, you know. I suppose they felt that 7 virgins and a mule was a bit too suggestive of bestiality or something. And so I finished, and there was sort of stunned silence in the club, and 1 or 2 people went. And I walked off the stand, and I passed the first table, and this guy sternly looked at me. He said, "You just ruined a great song." And the guy next to him turned to him and said, "He fucking wrote it." Thank you.
Got one last question for you. I was wondering if there is any kind of spiritual component to what you do.
Oh, I like to think so. Definitely, but you know, certainly on the odd occasion, I, you know, might go, "Wow, where did that come from?" And I choose not to answer it, you know, but I think a lot of other musicians feel that there is some sort of other sort of higher power. I wouldn't sort of regard myself as being overly religious, but and I admire all religions. No, I was brought up, you know, I wouldn't say that any of, my father certainly was not religious. My mother was, to a degree, and to that degree I sort of like, you know, attended church. I'm not really a church goer, but there's something which always amazed me, I suppose, is church music and its gothic atmosphere that it can provide. And I think when I got a Hammond organ, my first Hammond organ, the first thing I would play on it would be Bach or the Toccata and Fugue, you know, which was very gothic. Well, gothic sounding to me. And I wouldn't say that I listened to a lot of. I mean, Bach's music was wonderfully religious. I mean, the St. Matthew Passion, the Christmas Oratorio, all of which have made a real influence, you know, on me. But I wouldn't say in one aspect, I'm not. I value all religions, really. As long as you don't sort of wave it in people's faces, and become manic about it,
Listen, that's all I had for you.
Pleasure talking with you.